Good morning and welcome to the show. The issue today is minority teacher shortage, and we're talking to Dr. Bobby Lovett, who is the Dean of the College of Arts and Sciences at Tennessee State University and Professor of History at Tennessee State University. Dr. Lovett, let me welcome you to the show this morning.
Thank you very much, Dr. Haney.
Dr. Lovett, this is the third in a series of shows that we're doing during the Afro-American History Month. This will have to do with minority teacher shortage, followed by an earlier show dealing with the black press, and hopefully by another show dealing with the historical black colleges. And essentially what we're trying to do during this month of Afro-American history is to perhaps give the audience some idea of some of the contributions that have been made by black people, Afro-Americans, to the American experience. And we find that one of the major areas in that has to do with the problem of teaching the Afro-American history experience. And beyond that is the whole problem of teaching, period. And we find that there's a significant shortage of teachers in America today, and especially among Afro-Americans. And what we'd like to do today is to have you to talk about the shortage and some of the problems that we're faced with because of it.
All right. Well, Dr. Haney, first, I think the problem is a historical problem because it is a problem where history has sort of repeated itself, or we have repeated history. Right after emancipation, when blacks became citizens and were freed, there was a severe shortage of black teachers because of the fact that former slaves had not been permitted to be educated. So until about the 1880s, for example, in the Nashville school system, there were hardly any black teachers. Most of the teachers were white, and many of the teachers until the 1870s were from the North. They were missionaries who came down to teach in black schools. By the 1880s and the 1890s, of course, with the freedmen schools set up and public schools, enough blacks were now educated to start teaching their own children. And so by the 1890s, blacks were a significant part of the teaching course. By 1960s and the 70s and the 80s, blacks comprised about 15% of the professional teachers in the United States. The problem now is, since the 1980s, the Reagan and the Bush years, we have seen the percentage of black teachers steadily decline. And we expect it to decline to less than 5% in another 4 years. And so that's the nature of the problem, is that there will not be enough black teachers to man schools in the inner cities or in the suburbs. And in fact, there's also a shortage of blacks to take professors' jobs in colleges and universities, including the historically black colleges and universities.
I know you've had a problem with that yourself in terms of trying to identify enough people with the proper credentials in order to staff many of the areas that you're responsible for at Tennessee State University. Within that framework, Dr. Lovett, what are some of the problems that we encounter in trying to increase the number of blacks involved in the teaching profession?
Well, let me give you a little more information on the nature of the problem. The nature of the problem, to answer the question that must be on your mind and everybody else's mind, why this decline? Well, there are several things that have happened since the late 1970s. One, during the last 10 years, especially since 1980, there has been a 30% decrease in financial aid going to minority students from federal sources. Now, the federal government, especially the Reagan administration and now the Bush administration, claim that that is not true, because they argue that there's more financial aid. But what has happened, they have shifted the financial aid from grants and from actual fellowships and assistantships to loans. And they have put the burden on the student to go get the loan from a bank or so on. And as a result, black students who are usually poorer with fewer assets, and the parents have fewer assets, many times not even owning a home, they have been less likely to get financial aid to go to college than white students. So financial aid for white students has increased significantly since 1980, but financial aid for black students and other minorities has declined or decreased significantly since 1980. The other thing that has happened all over the country, there has been a reform movement in teacher education. And subtly, that reform movement has been directed at minorities, and that is claiming the quality of education has been affected by the large number of minorities in the classrooms. That has been quietly kept, but that has been one of the attitudes behind the reform, especially in our region of the country, the southern states. What has happened as a result is there has been a significant increase in admission standards into teacher education, who can get in to the college programs to be prepared to be teachers. One, they have required a battery of tests. Like in Tennessee, you must take the PPST test to be admitted. You must take the NTE, for example, at Tennessee State University also to be admitted, the core battery. And to get out of the program, to exit from the program, you must pass the NTE with a certain particular score that is established by the State Department of Education in the state of Tennessee. And other states, similarly, they have some entrance and exit requirements that has cut the black entrance into teacher education programs dramatically. For example, last year, about 70% of black students who took the PPST to be admitted to teacher education into the state of Tennessee failed the test. But 70% of white students who took the test passed the test. Of course, we have some problems with standardized tests. You can design tests so some people can pass them and some people will fail them, you know, because of cultural biases in those particular tests. However, people argue that this is the way to get quality in education, is to have standards that are higher. And as a result, it's very difficult for the black community to argue, say that those standards are discriminatory. They generally are not, but by nature, they do have some parts in the test that blacks happen to be weak on because of the schools that they are prepared in. Well, mathematics and some other things, analytical skills and other particular things that would make them score low on those particular tests. So those are some of the reasons that we have the problem that all of a sudden the percentage of black teachers has declined from 15%, where it's headed down to 5% in the United States now.
Well, Dr. Lovett, how would you